Hello, my friends. It is Jessica from I Read to Relax with Jessica Miller, also known as I Read to Relax on Instagram. I'm here today to tell you about a challenge that I've done the last couple of years in my reading that I think is really fun. It's called the 12 Recs from 12 Friends Challenge. You end up asking for 12 friends to recommend you 12 different books that you try to read during the year. So it works out to approximately one book a month. Now, this year, part of my list was already pre-populated because I did not complete this challenge in 2021. I believe 5 books that I did not get to, and I chose to bring some of them over to this year's list, and so I already had my list partly started, but I thought I would go through my list and let you know what my 12 books are for this year, for 2022. Brief description of each book, and maybe there'll be something that you want to add to your reading list at some point in time. So the first one is A Layer of Bones. I'm gonna put it right here, and I did not remember to write down the author's names, so it's here. But anyway, A Layer of Bones is the first book in a dark fantasy series about a kingdom that is ruled by sirens. And that's C-Y-R-E-N-S, is centering on the daughter of an infamous criminal, and she is forced to work as a bone cleaner in the labyrinth that is below the fortress where the rulers live. And her life obviously sucks, and she gets the opportunity to participate in the Queen's Tournament, which is a deadly series of like tests to see who's going to become the next queen. So it sounds really, really exciting. And the next book on my list is actually the one I just finished. It was my January book, and it is My Sister, the Serial Killer. And this one was a shorter book, and it's a genre that I don't normally read. It's that kind of realistic fiction thriller, I guess. I don't know exactly what to classify this one as, but it was really interesting. And I listened to the audiobook, and it's read really well. Like, the narrator did a great job, and the writing style is amazing. But the main character is a nurse in a hospital in Nigeria, and her sister, her younger sister, is like a great beauty. So she's sort of average, and her sister is just this woman who's coveted by many men. And as the title says, her sister turns out to be a serial killer. Like, she's not luring men off and murdering them, but she inevitably ends up with a trail of dead bodies behind her, and her sister is basically helping her keep it under wraps. And that was a carryover title from 2021, so I'm really glad that I finally got to it. And it feels really good to check that first one off of what would have been last year's list and now ended up being this year's list. So, yeah. The next title is Iron Widow, and I'm going to put the cover here as well. This one sounds really cool. I'm really excited to pick this one up too. It is a science fiction, and it is a world where there is this ongoing massive war between like these attack robots and, you know, people. And in this culture that it's centered around, they have these giant battle robots that they can send out to fight the other robots, and they need a boy pilot and a girl pilot to make each of the battle robots function. But it is deadly for the female pilots more often than not. So the main character ends up offering herself up for one of these missions in order to avenge her sister who had already done it and died. It's really cool. Battle robots. Oh my God. Okay. Next up on my list from the 12 is a book called The Witch King. And this one is a young adult fantasy. And it is about a trans witch who has to face his traumatic past and his ex-royal fiance in order to save the Fae Kingdom. Been recommended to me a lot. It's gotten really great reviews and it sounds really interesting. So I'm excited to check that one out. I think I have the audiobook of it already, but I'm not sure. I'll have to go back and check. Another one from this year's list is A History of Wild Places, which has gotten a lot of rave reviews as well. It's another book that I don't know I would have picked up without this recommendation, so I'm really excited because it sounds so interesting. It is about a tracker who is hired to find the missing author of these dark, wild, fantastic children's books. And the author has disappeared, and when he goes out to search for her, he comes across this commune where people are supposed to go and be able to find like a quieter, simpler life. And he ends up disappearing as well. So then some years later, at the commune, somebody starts digging into what happened, and let's just say there are lots of buried secrets there. It sounds so dark and mysterious, and it's got like a tie-in to fairy tales, and communes are always fascinating, so I'll let you guys know how it is eventually. The next one is one that was already on my list of things that I wanted to read, so I'm really excited that this really gives me the excuse to read it. It is Moon Touched, and it is the first book in a series about a half-human outcast in a world of werewolves. And she is rejected by her fated mate, who is the alpha of an enemy pack. And when the alpha rejects her, he comes in and like murders her entire family, just adding salt to the wound. And so she has to flee, and then she ends up getting kidnapped by the alpha of another pack of werewolves, and then basically has to survive. So y'all know me and werewolves. Like I said, already on my list to read. Super excited to have an excuse. I am ready to pick this one up anytime. Next on the list is a book called Savagelands, and this one is another one that I had already sort of put loosely on my TBR, and this gave me a great excuse to be like, yes, I will read this in 2022. This one is the first in another series, and it takes place in a world where 20 years ago, the barrier between our world and the other world, like the Fae world, fell. And so now this girl, Brexley, who lives in Budapest, has been tossed into this horrific prison that contains the deadliest of both like Fae and humankind. And she has to survive. Like there's a chance to try to escape, but obviously you're in the depths of hell with a bunch of people who just want to kill you. So it sounds super exciting. I've heard rave reviews about this series, so I'm really excited to pick that one up. Next on the list is the first book in a series, and I have actually already read a book later in the series, so I'm excited. I had planned to go back and start at the beginning, so this was a great excuse again to do that. So this is Hades, and I happen to know the author of this one is Carly Spade, and I already have the ebook lined up. Hades is the first in her contemporary mythos series, and I already read Eris. Loved that one. So like I said, I was excited to go back and read from the beginning of the series, but Hades is the first one, and it is about a woman who is a digital forensics examiner who's become overly consumed by this cold case. And she ends up taking a vacation to Greece to try and just relax, and ends up meeting a man who is claiming to be the Greek god Hades. Next up is The Bone Shard Daughter. And this is another adult fantasy that sounds fantastic. I'm really excited to check this one out. It is about a rules his kingdom with bone shard magic. So he can like animate bones and make the skeletons do things, and it just sounds like a really cool magic system. And he's been ruling like with an iron fist until suddenly his magic begins to fail. He has a daughter, Lynn, who has been trapped in their palace, essentially under her father's thumb, refuses to name her as heir. So a revolution has basically started, and so she decides she's going to master what had been previously forbidden to her, the bone shard magic. Is The Crown Chasers, and this one is by Rebecca Coffindoffer. It's the first book in this series. It has to do with a royal family that runs the galaxy, and when there should be a succession, again, a stubborn ruler that doesn't want to name their successor, so they decide to hold the crown chase, and it is an opportunity for anybody to become the next ruler. Another one that got held over is The Year of the Witching by Alexis Henderson, and this one again sounds amazing, and I just didn't get to it last year. It is a historical fantasy because it is set in a puritanical society, and a woman discovers that she has magical powers. So again, it sounds really good. I'm really going to make sure I read it. And then my last book on the list is technically this one, of Tainted Heart by Olivia Wildenstein and Katie Hayes. But I'm going to show you the first book of Wicked Blood because it is a duology, and I don't want to spoil by giving you the synopsis for the second one. So it is a sort of like a heist story, but also with magic. It has a great cast of characters. It's exciting, and like I said, I'll be reading book 2 of Tainted Heart this year. So that is my list of my 12 recs from 12 friends for 2021/2022, but maybe I'll do a halfway point video as well. But definitely by the end of the year, I'll do a video to sort of recap and let you know if I actually managed to read the 12 books this year. Hopefully some of those sounded interesting to y'all as well, and maybe we'll be reading some of the same books this year. But anyway, until we find out, happy reading. I hope you've got a great book going right now.